Hey, everybody, off and running on this second edition of the West Point 25. Jason Blewitt, joined by the man at Pimlico, trainer Dale Romans. What's going on, Dale? That does not look like your typical spot, your office at Churchill Downs.
No, this is a good spot, though. You know, Pimlico's pretty good to me. Here's West Point's one and only Lady Traveler hanging out with me. She's getting ready to run today in the Black-Eyed Susan. It's a beautiful day on the hilltop.
Good. Now, you've got actually, and I'm glad to see Lady T there. She's actually a younger half-sister to Heart. Now, some people might be catching our podcast after the Black-Eyed Susan is official and finished. But again, if someone's catching this thing Friday afternoon on the day of the Black-Eyed Susan, I mean, do we hopefully have a live long shot here with Lady Traveler?
Let's get it straight from the horse's mouth.
There's my sweetie pie.
There you go. I think she said on this. Yes, I think she's doubting herself.
She's live there.
She's training super. She's training super. We've been pointing for this race since the day we ran at Keeneland, and we figured get her over here, try to win this race. I love this race. I like Pimlico. I like this weekend. I think it's one of the greatest weekends in our sport, and I'm glad we're here.
Well, let's get the money today with Lady Traveler. I'm glad she's doing super with Javier Castellano riding, and she's 12-1 on the morning line. Before we go further, I mean, a lot has happened in the last, say, 7 days since we were last on, you and I together. You know, I got to get your take before we dive into anything else as far as the ramifications with the Kentucky Derby and Medina Spirit and Bob Baffert.
You know, it's a bad publicity for the sport. But it's a much more complicated issue than I think people understand, and the learning curve is so big, it's hard to figure out what's going on. But let's let due process run its course and see what happens. And you know, the big thing I think that people need to understand is the medication in the winters was not enough to affect the outcome of the race. And we'll see what happens today. Or for the Preakness, I think it'll be very interesting. People will be watching. How many people watch just to see how he runs today?
Yeah, I got to, you know, there's that old saying, she really likes you. And that she don't want
to be ignored.
Well, no, I mean, had I known that, we could have made her the third co-host. But
right.
Yeah, she's a sweetie pie. I had a good time playing in front of her stall when at Churchill Downs for Bezos, and obviously spent some time with you. But yeah, we're big fans of Lady Traveler, and yeah, let's hope for the best. And you know, I guess I'll wrap up by saying, you know, I was talking to my wife about this, and that old saying, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity. You know, you might have, in a way, a ratings bonanza here in terms of just eyeballs on the Preakness tomorrow afternoon.
I think it's going to be interesting to see. It will be, because I agree with you. People are talking about us, and they want to see what's going on. They want to see what happens. And, you know, personally, I think they'll run 1-2, and then we'll hold our breath for a week, see how the tests come back. They're both probably the two best horses in this race, but it is going to be interesting to see, you know, how it plays out.
Now, as far as this weekend at Pimlico, I've only been to 2 Preaknesses myself. I went to college for a couple of years in Northern Virginia. So this was back in 97 and 98. I played lacrosse in college, and a good buddy of mine that I played with was from Maryland, and he went to the Preakness every year. So I did the infield thing in 97 and 98. I got asked, coincidentally, with Baffert, Silver Charm and Real Quiet. So I was able to see in person, I mean, 2 legendary Preaknesses and 2 horses that would have a shot to sweep the series, moving on to the Belmont Stakes. And both of them obviously lost heartbreakers 3 weeks later in New York. But, you know, your history with Black-Eyed Susan Day, with Preakness Day at Pimlico, we talked about Shackelford and his 10-year anniversary a week ago. Take me back, though, 5 years ago, a crazy, like, 2 weeks in your life. What happened in 2016, pretty much from Derby week up through Preakness Day?
2016 was a wild Triple Crown run for us. It all started Derby Day, which we didn't run very well in the Derby, and it did happen to win the last race. And walking around the racetrack by myself, everybody else went home from the parking lot. I had to walk back to the barn, and it starts pouring down rain. And the sky was a funny color, blue, and Churchill starts playing Purple Rain by Prince. And I just stood there and leaned on the rail by myself and listened to Purple Rain and got rained on and watched the sky turn. And it was a cool experience. But then when I got back to the barn, on the way home, I swung by the bar and picked up all my guests that were in town. And they were all, like most people after a Derby day. I hadn't had a thing to drink. And it turned on the Southern Parkway on the way home, and the car runs a red light. And I hit it, spun us into traffic, and we got T-boned by a pickup truck. And there were 7 of us in the car. A girl had a broken neck, and another had a broken pelvis, and everybody had broken bones and ribs. And we're all laid out on the street, Southern Parkway, on my way home. And it's still pouring down rain. Everybody ended up in the hospital all night. And thank goodness I had just broken ribs and bruised up inside, but I got out of the hospital. I still wasn't over. Came up here, I was swollen from head to toe, could barely do the walk over. Walked over with my filly, and we ended up running 1-2 in the Black-Eyed Susan, and then the next day ran second in the Preakness. You'll get your time. You'll get your airtime. I hope she wants her picture taken that much this afternoon.
You got that right, Dale, for sure. And
Yeah.
We'll get back to her in a second.
So the next day they'll end up flying back home to Louisville and end up in the hospital for another night. But it was a wild 2 weeks.
Now, I mean, as far as your history, and yeah, I'm glad everybody was okay. We should probably add that, nobody.
Everybody ended up making it.
Right. And you eventually, were back in fighting strength, and
yes.
An exacta sweep in the Black-Eyed Susan led by Go Maggie Go. And then you had Cherry Wine the day after, who, if memory serves, I think split Exaggerator and Nyquist in the exacta in the Preakness.
That's right. But the thing that made me feel the best, I think, was that Pimlico so generously gives a horse and stakes, and we ended up winning that year. Paid a few medical bills.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, $50K. I bet you that came in. I was joking around with you over the winter time with Not This Time, who's now standing for $40K. And we know you did well with him. You love Sons of Giants Causeway, but you're like, it's awesome that he's in for $40K or standing for $40K. But my breeding season, that money comes in and it goes back out.
Hey, I'm good for the economy. Whatever comes in, I use. So it is.
So, I mean, what's the game plan for you and Tammy? I mean, what do you guys like to do? Because it seems like Old Hilltop and Pimlico, this is an annual, rite of spring for you guys. I mean, what do you guys, aside from going to the races and training your horses, what's on tap?
Well, a lot of years we'll stay an extra day and hang out in the harbor. And this year we're not. I don't like being a spectator. So we're getting on the plane at 8 o'clock in the morning and going home. I'll watch it from Churchill Downs. But we love Baltimore. I already had a nice dinner last night. She picked me up at the airport, and we'll probably have a nice dinner tonight somewhere, and maybe go down in the harbor and have lunch before the races, and then come back for the big race, try to win some money, and head out tomorrow.
All right.
I love it here. Let me tell you, Pimlico treats the horsemen better than any racetrack in America. And to me, this is the funnest event of the year. And, the Derby is the biggest event, but it's too much pressure. I mean, you're under the gun 24/7. And then after the Derby, you come over here, and if you have a horse in the Preakness, everybody trains out of the same barn. They feed your help every morning. They have a little breakfast tent where we all hang out. They have events planned. They have drivers for you. They have rental cars for you. They just bend over backwards and love horse racing and horse people at Pimlico.
A lot of history there. Can you think back? I mean, what was your first Preakness, either as just, you were born into the game, and I know you were basically in a stroller at Churchill Downs growing up as a Louisville native, but any other Preakness memories come to mind with the long history of the race? And obviously you've been around forever. Yeah,
I would say, Preakness was, we had run well in the third in the Derby, and came over here. I think it's the first one I ran in. And First Dude did not get into the Derby. He's the one horse that I've always thought would have run big if we could have gotten him into the Derby. And he didn't get in that year on earnings. He had just started getting good. And when we came for home and we hit the wire, looking at Lucky just nailed us on the wire. one of the many times Baffert beat me on the wire in big races. But that one was a big adrenaline rush. I mean, there's nothing bigger than when we came up here and we won the Dixie and the Preakness the same year with Patty O'Prado and Shackelford. But I've always liked coming here. We've always had fun. We're always treated well, and it's just a wonderful place. I'm glad they're fixing it up. I'm going to keep it. I sure didn't want them to move.
Yeah, well, I mean, are there any renovations going on that you've seen as we speak, or is that something they haven't started yet, at least as far as what you've been able to take in this trip?
Well, I got in here last night, and to tell you the truth, this morning we came straight to the barn, and I haven't left here, so I haven't gotten to see much. But I know that I've seen all the plans and the drawings, and if it comes together like they're planning, this is going to be a beautiful place to race.
Well, even it's funny mentioning Patio Prado. I'm glad you brought him up. Kitten's Joy, did he win a race as a 3-year-old, or did Artie Schiller beat him? I'm trying to think.
No, he didn't run over here. He won Kitten's Joy. You know, he had his coming out party at the Secretariat in August of his 3-year-old year. And he won that. I don't believe I ever ran him over here.
Gotcha.
But Patty was an interesting situation. Patio Prado was a super racehorse. He never got the credit I think he deserved. And he came off of a 6 or 8 month layoff, and we ran him here in the Dixie, and he wins. And on the way, I went back to the barn. We had Shackelford coming over. He had to go to the test barn, and I get a call saying that he's limping in the test barn. Yes, I mean, there can only be one thing, and they got a little bone in their ankle, a sesamoid bone, and I'm sure he had cracked it or something, in which he ended up doing. So I'm walking over doing the NBC walkover, knowing my big horse had just gotten hurt, and Shackelford is acting like a fool, like he would do sometimes. He was just so big and strong and happy. He was just a rambunctious teenager. And I barely got the saddle on him. He's got sweat running off of him. People are telling me in my ear that their commentators saying he can't win because he's gotten too hot and sweaty. My big horse just got hurt. And when he turned for home, he just opened up and took off and had to hold off Animal Kingdom in the last few strides to win the Preakness. And that was a special weekend. And we got back to the barn, and Patty, fortunately, it was not a major injury, but it was enough that we ended his career. He had no reason, nothing else to prove. And after the Preakness, every year they have like at least 1,000 people back here that Pimlico puts on an after party with an open bar. And I don't know, I met some great people that night, and I let them pet Shackelford. They were petting. Everybody was petting. He must have been 1,000 people come through and pet on him that day, and he was eating it up. He was place has a lot of special memories for me.
What about Patio Prado? I mean, as far as, not to compare him to a Kitten's Joy, who was a turf champion, and just as far as a turf horse goes, I mean, he's up there among the best of the best we've seen in this country over the last quarter century. But when you look back, even a horse that maybe wasn't given the kind of credit he deserved when he was racing, I probably was guilty of that with Patio Prado. What made him such a solid horse?
So he not only was a good racehorse, he was a cool horse to be around. He would holler all the time. That's one thing I like to be. Take him on the racetrack, he'd talk to other horses, he'd be yinning and hollering, and not a mean bone in his body. He was just so super talented. I think my big 3 turf horses are Kitten's Joy, Patio Prado, and Little Mike, and Silver Max. We've had a quadruple of good turf horses, and they're just fun to be around because you don't send them off to the breeding shed as early as you do some of the others. It seems like they stay sound and around longer, and they just get to be your pet and part of your family.
Now, as we wrap up, I got to get the update. Another week's gone by. Looking at the string, the Roman string at Churchill Downs. West Point 2-year-old crew. We've got a lot of horses in partnership with the Albaugh family stable. Anybody come to mind that had a really good week that we should look out for?
I'm sticking with our Brody's Cause colt. He's to me acting like a special 2-year-old, but they're all doing good. I mean, I tell you, they're all doing well. We got a good group this year. It's exciting, and every week they improve and they move forward. As long as they keep moving forward, we're in business. But I'm predicting he'll be our first one that we start.
All right, let's hope that's the case. And I'll wrap up by saying a lot of partners are going to be on hand. West Point partners with that filly who I really thought she might take a chunk out of that collar. She likes playing around with you, but again, there's going to be a pretty big West Point crew and contingent with Lady Traveler. Just what's it like trading for West Point and then having all the great partners, in this case, that own a piece of Lady Traveler that are coming to Pimlico to see her race?
But I love working for West Point. I love the fact the energy of the people. I love the fact that that they don't only invest in a horse, but they join a club and they're all in it together. And it's especially if you win, it's really good because everybody's so happy and excited. Now on the flip side, I hate disappointing people, and when we don't run as big sometimes as we think we might, but they're all such intelligent horse people and understand the game. And like I said, West Point does such a good job of making it a club environment where they're all in it and everybody has fun and everybody meets new people. It's done as much for the game in my tenure as anything I can think of.
All right. Well, let's get the money with her. Have a great preak this weekend, my friend, and you and I will touch base and knock out edition 3 of the West Point 20, West Point 25 in a few days once you're back home in Kentucky.
Sounds good. I hear the big boss is here somewhere. I haven't seen him yet, but he'll show up.
Oh, Mr. Terry Finley is in Baltimore along with the great Tommy Bellhouse. So you'll be
cool.
You'll be in good company, my friend, for sure.
I'll see them both. And everybody say goodbye to Lady Traveler. She's having her lunch. Here she is.
There's my sweetie pie.
Pre-game lunch.
Yeah, a little pregame lunch. Quality Road and a half sister to Heart. And in fact, we just bought her younger half brother by Arrogate. We picked him up at OBS April, and he's at Santa Anita with John Sadler. He went for like $725. He was a pricey horse, but he looks like a superstar too.
It's a good family. It's a good family.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Hopefully we can increase the pedigree today.
Let's hope that's the case. All right, Dale. Thanks again. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.